And I think that you probably have some foundation with this topic. But let's go through just some basic vocabulary. The power of a number is just a product of equal factors, meaning that you've got a number and you multiply it times itself over and over again. So the power of a number is just product of equal factors or product of the same number. And I'll say product of the same factor. And we'll use a little example. I'll go with 2 times 2 times 2. So that's the same number multiplied times itself 3 times. And I could think of this as 2 raised to the 3rd power. So the base of the power, the second vocabulary topic, the base of the power is the actual factor that is used to be multiplied times itself. So the base of the power in the example down here would be the 2. And it's simply the number that's used as a factor. And then the exponent is just simply the number that tells you how many times you're going to multiply that factor times itself. So the exponent in the example would be 3. And it just simply indicates how many times the base will be multiplied times itself. Writing in exponential form, well, that's just simply making the expression, presenting it in its most concise, efficient way. So exponential form would be writing the base raised to the number of times that the base appears as a factor. So you have your base multiplied times itself 3 times in this little example. So expressing 2 times 2 times 2 as 2 raised to the 3rd or 2 cubed, that's presenting your answer in exponential form. Okay, a few simple problems. Write each expression in exponential form. Well, part A, you have 5 multiplied times itself 3 times. So in exponential form, that would be 5 cubed, which you would go ahead and simplify as 125. In part B, you have a base of A multiplied times itself 4 times. A appears as a factor 4 times, so that's A to the 4th. A base of B appearing as a factor 3 times, or multiplied by itself 3 times, so that becomes cubed. In part C, take the 2 numbers and multiply them together for a -6 coefficient. Write the base of x once. It's a factor 3 times, so it becomes cubed. A base of y once. It's a factor twice, so it takes the square. In part D, -5 times -2 is -10. That's your coefficient. A base variable of m multiplied by itself 3 times, or as a factor 3 times, is a cube. Base variable n appearing twice as a factor, so it's a square. And a base variable p appearing as a factor 4 times, so it takes the 4th power. When you have exponents with and without parentheses and negative signs, you have to be careful. In number 2, part A, I have -3 squared. And in part B, you can compare the two. I have parentheses around the -3, and the square is sitting outside the parentheses. In number 1, or in part A, you can think of this expression as -1 times 3 squared. And in this example, you would simply take the base of 3 and square it, and then just take the opposite of that outcome. So this would give you a -9 outcome. On the other scenario, in part B, when the negative sign appears inside parentheses, well, this is -3 times -3. So I have a negative sign times itself, or a -1 times a -1, giving you a positive outcome. So the result for 2C is +9. So the difference being, when the negative sign is inside parentheses, then you could think of multiplying a -1 the number of times it should appear as a factor, and it changes the sign on your outcome. So the parentheses do make a difference. In part C, I have -3 raised to the third power with no parentheses. So you can think of this as a -1 times 3 cubed, giving you a result of -27. In part D, the negative sign is inside the parentheses, and I'm cubing it. So I have -3 times itself 3 times. The first time I multiply, the first pairing, that gives me a +9. But then I have a +9 times a -3, giving me an end result of -27. So I want you to think about the answers for number 3 and 4, and we'll discuss it in class on Monday. If I have a negative base inside parentheses and the power is even, is my final answer positive or is it negative? And then the other scenario, if I have a negative base raised to an odd power, is my outcome positive or is it negative? And be prepared to share your answer and state your case in class on Monday. And then finally, bringing some geometry in, looking at the example that they provide, that's provided on your handout. Calculating area with variables involved. I now have a way to deal with x times x. So the area for the rectangle in the example would be 4x squared. Number 17, you only have one variable, so the area will be 5y times 3, or 15y. In number 18, you have area 3x times 2x. So 2 times 3 is 6, and x times itself is x squared. In number 19, 8z times 3z represents the area. 8 times 3 is 24, and z times itself is z squared. Try the problems in the book for Monday, and we'll be ready to move on to the next topic.